The misty coastal town of Blackwater Bay was a place where secrets clung to the salt air like whispers. Life moved at a slow, predictable rhythm. Fishermen set out at dawn, returned at dusk, and the town's heartbeat pulsed in harmony with the tides. Victor Rees had built his life in this quiet town, content with the simple things. His wife, Elena, their modest home perched on the cliffs, and his steady job at the shipyard. But beneath the surface of his seemingly peaceful existence, dark undercurrents of betrayal and revenge were beginning to stir. That morning began like any other. The fog rolled in thick from the ocean, shrouding the town in its damp embrace. Victor kissed Elena's forehead as she lay in bed, her dark hair spilling across the pillow, before heading out to work. As he navigated the mist-laden streets, the headlights of his truck barely cutting through the gloom, he had no idea that his life was on the brink of irreversible change. The shipyard was alive with its usual symphony of sounds, the clang of metal, the hum of machinery, and the ever-present scent of salt and diesel. Victor found comfort in the routine. His work was demanding, requiring focus, and he welcomed the distraction. But as he tightened the bolt on a massive hull, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Wiping his hands on his coveralls, he checked a message. It was from his neighbor, Liam. "Victor, your back door is wide open." A simple message, yet it sent a wave of unease through him. He was certain he had locked the door before leaving, just as he did every morning. His first thought was that Elena had gone out and forgotten to close it properly. But then, a more insidious thought crept in. What if someone else had opened it? He shook off the paranoia and quickly replied, asking Liam to close the door for him. Liam, ever the helpful neighbor, agreed. Still, the unease lingered. Victor tried to return to work, but his concentration was shot. The image of that open door gnawed at him, a symbol of something out of place, something wrong. Unable to ignore the feeling, he told his foreman he had an emergency and needed the rest of the day off. His foreman, a gruff but understanding man, didn't ask questions. Victor was a dependable worker, and that was enough. Climbing into his truck, Victor's heart pounded as he sped to the narrow streets, the fog swirling around him like ghosts. But when he reached home, his unease turned to dread. A sleek black sedan sat in his driveway, a car he didn't recognize. He parked down the street out of sight and approached the house with careful, deliberate steps. Each one felt like a drumbeat in his chest. Just as Liam had said, the back door was ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. Victor pushed it open. Inside, silence, the kind that made the hair on his arms stand on end. His work boots felt impossibly loud against the hardwood floor as he walked down the hallway. The house felt different, wrong. Then he heard it, muffled voices, Elena's, and another, deeper, unfamiliar. Victor's pulse roared in his ears as he stepped closer to the bedroom door, which was slightly open. He hesitated for a moment, his breath caught in his throat, then nudged it open just enough to see inside. And what he saw made the blood drain from his face. There, on their bed, was Elena, wrapped in the arms of another man. Victor stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat as he took in the scene before him. The sheets were tangled around their bodies, their faces flushed with passion. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't hear the door creak open or notice him standing there, his world crashing down around him. The rage that surged through Victor was like nothing he had ever felt before. It was primal, a red-hot wave that threatened to consume him. But instead of acting on it, he forced himself to remain still, to think. He needed to be smart about this. Violence would only get him in trouble, and he would lose everything. No, if he was going to make them pay, he needed to be cold, calculating. With a shaking hand, Victor pulled out his phone. He turned off the flash and silently took a series of photos, each one capturing betrayal in vivid detail. He recorded a short video, the sounds of their lovemaking filling the room. When he was done, he quietly retreated, backing out of the house as if he had never been there. Victor drove to the cliffs where the ocean roared below, crashing against the rocks in a fury that matched his own. He stood there for a long time, the wind whipping his hair as he tried to make sense of what he'd seen. The woman he had loved, the woman he had devoted his life to, had betrayed him in the most intimate way possible. But instead of letting the despair swallow him whole, Victor made a decision. He would destroy Elena and her lover, but he would do it in a way that would leave them both broken, their lives in ruins. Victor knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed help, someone who could dig up the dirt he needed to take them down. He thought of Sam, an old friend from his younger days who had become a private investigator. Sam was known for his discretion and his ability to uncover things that others couldn't. Victor called him that night, his voice calm and steady as he explained what happened. Sam agreed to help, and within days, he had a full dossier on Elena's lover. His name was Richard Hall, a high-ranking executive at a major corporation in the city. He was married, with 2 young children and a spotless reputation. Richard had everything to lose, and Victor knew just how to take it all away from him. The first step was to ruin Richard's marriage. Victor sent the photos and video to Richard's wife, along with a letter posing as a concerned friend. The letter was crafted to sound sympathetic, but was laced with enough venom to ensure that it would destroy her trust in Richard. The fallout was immediate. Richard's wife filed for divorce, and within days, the scandal reached his workplace. The corporate world was ruthless, and as soon as the rumors started to circulate, Richard's position became untenable. He was forced to resign, his career in shambles. But Victor wasn't done. He wanted Elena to suffer as well. He started leaving anonymous notes around the house, slipping them under the door when she was out. The notes were cryptic, filled with phrases like, "I know what you did," and "Your time is coming." They were designed to make her paranoid, to make her question everyone around her. And it worked. Elena began to unravel. She became jumpy, suspicious, her once confident demeanor crumbling under the weight of her guilt. Victor watched it all unfold from the sidelines, biding his time. He moved out of the house, leaving Elena to stew in her misery. He found a small apartment in the city, a place where he could plan his next move without distraction. He knew that Elena would eventually come crawling back, desperate to explain, to beg for forgiveness. And when she did, he would be ready. A month later, Elena called him, her voice trembling. She wanted to meet, to talk about what had happened. Victor agreed, setting up a meeting at the restaurant where they had celebrated their first anniversary, a place filled with memories, now tainted by her betrayal. When Elena walked into the restaurant, she was a shadow of her former self. Her eyes were hollow, her skin pale, and she looked as though she hadn't slept in days. Victor almost felt a pang of pity for her, but he quickly squashed it. She had made her bed, and now she would lie in it. They sat across from each other, the silence heavy between them. Elena tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Finally, she managed to choke out an apology, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Victor. I made a terrible mistake. Please, just give me a chance to make it right." Victor said nothing. He simply slid a folder across the table, his expression cold. Elena opened it with trembling hands, her eyes widening as she saw the divorce papers inside. Beneath them were the photos and video he had taken, the evidence of her betrayal laid out in stark detail. "I don't understand," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to feel it," Victor replied, his voice as cold as the winter sea. "I wanted you to live with the fear, the guilt, the knowledge that your life is crumbling around you. This is what you chose. Elena, this is what you deserve." Elena broke down, her shoulders shaking with sobs, but Victor felt nothing. No remorse, no sadness, only a deep, abiding satisfaction. He had won. He had taken everything from her, just as she had taken everything from him. As the weeks passed, Victor watched from a distance as Elena's life continued to fall apart. Richard was gone, his marriage and career in ruins. Elena was left with nothing but regret, haunted by the choices she had made. And Victor? He walked away, knowing that justice, his justice, had been served.